Okay, so I'm a little late to this party, but the Michael Morbius trailer looks amazing. See, here's the thing. I love what Sony's doing, right? Like, I love what Sony's doing right now, and I think it's good they finally found their footing, right? Because for the longest time, Sony was just cranking out Spider-Man movies, right? It was a Spider-Man movie, like 1, 2, and 3, which I thought the Tobey Maguire movies were okay, but I never thought they were all that great. And then you got Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, which I loved Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I feel like the second movie was kind of awful, right? Just kind of rushed and awful and so on, especially Electro. I think it was just kind of like a totally wasted scenario. But it felt like Sony was just kind of retreading water, you know, like one of these days, we're gonna make a great Spider-Man movie and people are gonna love it. You know, that was kind of the philosophy of Sony. I'm glad they found their footing in focusing on villains because like I've actually like given the direction Sony's going in, I've got this full-on plan to basically do stuff with Sony that would blow what Marvel's doing out of the water. And I think it would be cool, you know, to kind of see it all go down. But the fact remains, Michael Morbius looks awesome. Now here's the cool thing about it, right? Like, you know, for those of you guys who saw the trailer, there's this panel on the wall where like Spider-Man's labeled as a murderer. And then you have Michael Keaton at the end of the trailer, which shows us that like the Vulture's there. Either that, or Michael Keaton's in the Michael Morbius movie, which is somehow not tied to the MCU, even though it is, and it's a massive coincidence, right? But obviously it's connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Given the fact that Spider-Man's labeled a murderer, it looks like it takes place after the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. So it looks like it kind of continues on from there. I think it's cool that Sony's bringing things closer in line. But here's my curiosity, right? Because if you go back and you look at Amazing Spider-Man 102, which I think is where Michael Morbius first appeared, it was this weird scenario, right? Like, you know, Spider-Man was coming out of a story where he had 6 arms, and like Kirk Connors was there, and ultimately like Michael Morbius ends up showing up in the United States, and then ends up getting into a fight with Spider-Man and Kirk Connors, and then bites Kirk Connors, right? And so Dr. Connors goes from being a lizard back to being a regular person, and then him and Spider-Man are just like, holy crap. Basically like, this guy can cure us. So let's do what any superhero would do in his circumstance. Let's force him to give him some of our blood. You know, force him to give us some of his blood. So what he ends up doing, or at least what Spider-Man and the Lizard end up doing, is tracking down Michael Morbius. They end up getting into a fight with him. They take some of his blood, and then they use it. Spider-Man's 6 arms go away, and Kirk Connors goes back to being human for a while. But it's cool because my question is, how does this tie into the grander scheme of things, right? Because when you look at the idea of what's going on with Venom, Venom's a weird situation, right? Now, there is, in my mind, there's a foolproof way like that to throw Venom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that can be done quickly and easily, right? Just in the simplest of ways that I think works splendidly. But with Michael Morbius, what's the big picture here, right? Like, you know, what's the point of Michael Morbius? Because when you look at that, I guess you could kind of make an argument that with this story, you get them focusing on villains. My question is it going to go to Sinister Six? In reality, if they're bringing them closer in line with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I wouldn't do that at all. I would bring in Michael Morbius and then bring in the rest of the other Midnight Suns and then do that, right? Like the Midnight Suns storyline, right? Just the whole thing where you have like either that or something that would be really, really cool would be the Doctor Strange Black Ops team, right? So here was the thing, right? The Michael Morbius trailer, to kind of deviate from this for a second, here was a cool thing. In the 1990s, and even going back further, Marvel had a team called the Defenders, which went way back, right? It was Silver Surfer, it was the Incredible Hulk, it was Doctor Strange, and Namor the Submariner, I think, was part of the original Defenders. I'm not going to swear to that off the top of my head, but in the 90s, Marvel didn't really know what to do with it. And so what they did is they handed it over to Doctor Strange, and the Defenders became a Doctor Strange story. And Doctor Strange would basically take like these like teams. The roster would change all the time, right? So on one roster, you would have Wolverine and Cyclops and Blade and like Thor. And then like on another roster, you would have the Incredible Hulk, and then you'd have like Iron Man, and you'd have like, you know, some other characters, you know, something like that. But like Titania or something along those lines. And maybe like Volcana, you know, or something else. But you basically have these characters. And what they would do is Doctor Strange would take them on these missions into like the other dimensions, and they would basically be a Black Ops team, right? They would go on like these surgical strike missions. They were a strike force, and it was amazing, right? But I see Michael Morbius coming into conflict with Blade in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That would be badass. That would be amazing. But again, you know, as far as the trailer itself, it looks awesome. Like, it looks absolutely amazing. And that's what I think is so cool about this, right? Is Sony finding their footing and Sony focusing on villains and not focusing on heroes. The notion, the idea of like Venom, for example, a lot of people were just kind of like, Venom's, you know, it's okay, and it's a thing that's there, you know, and it didn't really get all the hype that it deserved. But I thought it was a fantastic movie for what it was, right? It was a great start to focusing on a villain verse, which was really, really cool. Michael Morbius continues that trend. I love they're keeping the themes pretty strong to the comic roots insofar far as he's basically a guy from Greece. He's like this, he's not a physicist. He's some kind of like biomolecular engineer or something. Anyway, basically he has a blood disease, and literally like the blood disease he's always trying to cure. In the comics, what he did is he took vampire bats and then electroshock therapy, which basically like resulted in him essentially being a kind of pseudo vampire, right? So he has to feed on human blood in order to keep doing his thing. He's basically a vampire by all standards of measurement. He's averse to sunlight, different things like that. He walks around at night, so on and so forth. I'm kind of curious, right? I mean, the funny thing about this is that the trailer doesn't really give us enough to be able to say, like, here's what the movie's about in its entirety, right? And the big question to ask here, this is the real question to ask, is he going to come into conflict with Spider-Man? That's the big question to ask here, because I feel like if we don't get an answer in Spider-Man 3, we'll certainly get, I don't know why we wouldn't get an answer there, but we'll certainly, if we don't get an answer here, we would get it in Spider-Man 3. But I would like to see, in some form or fashion, the movie kind of showing some measure of the fallout with Spider-Man, right? I think that would give it more cohesiveness, like the movie kicks off with like, Michael basically sitting in some lab in Greece or, doing something, and it's like, man, like in other news today, there's like some news clip. In other news today, Spider-Man is on the run. He's underground. Nobody knows where he is, and this is after his identity as Peter Parker was outed by Mysterio, at Spider-Man Far From Home. Spoilers for like a 2-year-old movie or however long that movie's been out. But still, I think it'd be kind of cool and it would provide some cohesiveness. But what I think would really come out of this is having other characters that you wouldn't normally see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like some more ground level characters, right? Having him encounter Blade, that would be a fantastic idea, right? Having him encounter Blade, or like there's rumors of Blade, right? Even if Michael Morbius doesn't really meet Blade, maybe somewhere along the line he meets like other vampires, right? And they're like, hey man, like it's cool that you're one of us now, but make sure you watch out for that Daywalker guy because he'll kill you. That'd be kind of cool to see something along those lines. I would dig it. But yeah, I would love to see them go the direction of the Midnight Suns. Like that would be cool. Werewolf by Night and all those guys, and that's kind of the funny thing, right? Because introducing someone like Michael Morbius and focusing on a movie that really gives us like the darker, almost kind of horror / mythological side of Marvel, it gives Marvel the opportunity to focus like on that full on mythological side of things, and so it would get pretty awesome. But for the trailer itself, I love the tone. Assuming the movie is anything like the tone of the trailer, it's going to be fantastic, right? It's going to be an absolutely awesome movie. I love that it's Jared Leto. I feel like Jared Leto gets a bad rap, especially after his portrayal of the Joker, which really wasn't all that great. The Joker's not a mobster, right? The Joker's not like Pretty Boy Floyd. I don't want to see that version of the Joker. I don't want to see Al Capone Joker. I want to see crazy sadistic Joker, like Death of the Family Joker, or like Steve Englehart Joker, where he tried to copyright Fish, or something like that. I want to see those crazy versions of the Joker. So Jared Leto kind of got a bad rap there. But the great thing about Jared Leto is if you ever saw like Requiem for a Dream, which is kind of the movie that made his career, he's an amazing and very, very versatile actor. I think in this, he could be fantastic. Oh, and here's the thing. Here's the craziest thing about it, right? You see what he looks like when he's full on like a vampire at the end. Dude, he looks amazing. Dude, it's crazy. It's pretty nuts. But overall, I think the movie is going to be fantastic, and I'm really hoping here that it's going to be full of Easter eggs. That's really what I'm shooting for. Is we're going to get all kinds of little Easter eggs, all kinds of little moments, different things like that. Seeing Michael Keaton, seeing the Vulture there, it's kind of cool. I imagine that with the two of them encountering each other, I wouldn't be surprised if we got the Sinister Six, right? The original Sinister Six is totally different, right? It's Dr. Octopus, it's what is it? Electro, Chameleon, and I can't remember the other ones, but I think Mysterio was part of the original Sinister Six. You get those kind of characters. This one will be nothing like it. But at the end of the day, Sinister Six is the Sinister Six. There's been so many iterations of it. The first Sinister Six movie does not need to be the original roster. It doesn't need to be that way, right? I mean, like the original Avengers movie, like it didn't have Wasp, right? It didn't have like Ant-Man, Hank Pym. It had like Scott Lang. So you can switch up rosters, right? I mean, I'm not so hardcore into comics, so like it has to be the original roster. I used to be, but then I was kind of like, didn't really make any sense to get so upset about something that I love. So because of that, the movie looks amazing. It looks fantastic. I am excited for it. I'm hyped just like everybody else. I want to know what you guys think after seeing the trailer. I want to know what you guys think about this because I think it's going to be absolutely awesome. I think it's going to be really, I think it's going to be kind of what we need in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, you know, with Sony and the MCU, I think it's going to need to like focus on the darker side of things, right? Focus on the darker horror element of Marvel, which is sorely lacking in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But let me know what you guys think. If you guys are new here to Comments Explain, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.